Hey guys, to help run the forums, host the website, and travel, we've introduced a universal service fee for in-depth coverage, including this video. My goal is to be unbiased and transparent. It's a privilege to serve you. This is not an endorsement. Let's get into it. Hey guys, we're in Salt Lake City, Utah, riding bikes around. We found Memorial Park and then this meditation chapel. And it says this is to honor the sons of Utah who trod war's last mile. Just a really nice spot. Out of respect, we're down here on the second level, but I thought it would be a nice place to talk about bikes and just kind of the cool places you can discover while you're out riding around, and really zoom in on the Magnum Ui6 Plus. That's the focus of this review. I covered the Ui6 earlier, and you know, it's a really nice bike. They've basically upgraded from the Ui5s by having a 48 volt battery instead of 36, 500 watt nominal hub motor instead of 350. When you look at the Ui6 Plus, it's basically a high step version. 19-inch frame versus 18-inch. The wheels on that are 26-inch diameter by 2.15, whereas these ones are 28, and they're a little bit narrower. Let me see if I can find that marking, by 1.5 instead of 2.15. So it is narrower. That's going to be a little bit more efficient, a little bit lighter weight. I was really surprised to find that this weighs about 58.5 pounds versus 60.1. So this is a heavier bike, even though it's a smaller frame size, a little bit more approachable with the low step design. High steps tend to be a bit more stiff. And that can be a nice feeling if you weigh more, if you're a bigger person, you want that full leg extension, a little bit longer reach. Both of them have these adjustable stems, tool-free, but make sure they stay tight, because over time, if they start to rattle, if you're going off curbs, it's just going to start to strip the teeth in there. It's got a couple extra spaces here, 2 extra 10mm spacers compared to that one. But a lot of the components are very similar. You can see this SR Suntour NEX spring suspension fork, kind of basic, but it does have preload adjusters under those plastic caps. You can remove them, but be careful because they can crack. I've done that in the past, and in some ways it's nice to just leave them alone if they work well enough for you. And then there's a ProMax suspension seat post, 27.2mm diameter on that, 300mm length if you wanted to replace it with something longer or a different, nicer suspension post. This offers about 40mm of travel, and in the base of that post, there is another compression adjust. There's like a bolt down there that you can tighten. So by tightening that spring, you're going to make this more comfortable for someone who's heavier. So you're kind of preloading the spring, if that makes sense. So I love that. In a sense, this has like a full suspension feel, because those tires, they do also run at a higher PSI rating. It's like 50 to 85 versus 30 to 50 over there. So, you know, you get the impression maybe the volume is similar, but this one's just, it's a little bit harder. I love that it has reflective sidewall stripes. I love that this has an integrated headlight, though you do have to physically press this button to turn it on and off. It's not operated through the display panel. And in the rear, we've got 2 AAA batteries in this Spinninga Solo, and there's a little button on the bottom as well. So you have to remember to turn that off after you stop, or you're going to sort of wear down that battery over time. And you can imagine cruising around at night and meeting up with some friends and being excited to talk to them, and then realizing like, oh, I forgot to turn off my light. And you just don't want to waste those AAA batteries. So that's something that comes to mind for me whenever I'm riding. I love the rack, very utilitarian. It's got this trunk bag application, or maybe some panniers that could hang over the side so you can bring gear, or maybe have a picnic with your friends. Both of these bikes have that, and both of them have fenders. They're aluminum alloy. They're not going to rust the way that steel might, but they're going to be a little bit sturdier and quieter than plastic fenders. These ones are a bit narrower. They match the narrower design of the fenders and stuff. This one only comes in satin black, as you see here, whereas that one comes in black or white. And that could be a great choice, even, you know, if you're a guy and you're like, I don't know how I feel about step through. It's a nice looking bike because of the double tubing that way. They both have these really nice aluminum alloy platform pedals. They give you good traction, and they feel good under your feet. They're not going to get bent out of shape like some of the cage style pedals I've seen in the past. And they both have kickstands with adjustable length, but they're mounted at the middle of the frame, so you can get some of that pedal lock which matters if you're backing your way out. And both of them have standard length 170mm crank arms, so you get a really relaxed, traditional feel. This bike is a little bit longer than that one. You know, it's about 72 inches. So that's another consideration. I love that they have bottle cage bosses, but this is kind of a sensitive place to have them. I guess I'll leave it at that. Part of me feels like maybe they'd be a better fit right there, but then how do you get the water bottle in there? It might only work for like a folding lock, and having the option to use bags is a really good one. So I don't know, you could even take these bolts out if you were concerned about them. The standover height and the minimum saddle height on this bike is definitely higher, especially with that suspension seat post. If you got a rigid seat post, you could drop it a little bit lower, but you can see how it sort of starts to overlap on that rack. I mean, they're really squeezing a lot in here and doing their best to provide utility, and this is what I would call commuter ready, because it has fenders, it has lights, it has a rear rack. It's kind of ready to go. And I like how the battery pack is semi-integrated, so it's stepped into the frame. It keeps weight a little bit lower, keeps weight towards the center of the frame. That's like 9.2 pounds just for the battery pack. If you took that off, it'd be a lot easier to hang this off of a car rack, to lift it, to do service, that kind of thing. And we do have quick release up front on the front wheel as well. You might notice this little black box down here. This is a metal box, and it has the motor controller inside. It's a pretty high amp controller as well, so you get a nice zippy feel with that 48-volt battery. But by separating it from the battery, they make replacements a lot more affordable. They also remove some of the heat, because heat can be damaging to lithium-ion cells, extreme heat. Extreme cold isn't great either. I don't think it's quite as damaging to the cell chemistry. It's more of a, you're not going to get as much range. So if you wake up in the morning, if you've left this in your garage and the battery's cold, even if it's fully charged, your range is going to suffer a little bit. So I like that it's removable, and just the placement of that, again, is something really nice. The hub motor, as I mentioned, 500 watt planetary geared hub motor with 90 newton meters of torque on offer. You don't get quite as good of a mechanical advantage as the smaller 26-inch wheel, but it's still very good. And I'll ride around, do a little bit of hill stuff later. We do have a 7-speed cassette, 14 to 28 tooth. These look, they're nickel plated, so they might not rust as easily. We have a Z chain here with this nice derailleur guard, and it's protecting your motor power cable, which has a quick disconnect for maintenance, and it's protecting your derailleur. This is Shimano Altus, 2 steps up from the base of Shimano, so it's Tourney TX, and then Altus. So a little bit nicer, maybe a little bit lighter, more durable. And then the drivetrain has this aluminum alloy. It's kind of a pant leg guard, and it's going to keep the chain from bouncing off outward, but it doesn't have a full guide, so there's no second plate on the inside. It could drop off inward. Hasn't happened to me, and I've gone over some bumps, but I want to be fair and sort of call that out. A lot of attention to detail here with this sticker slap guard, and it's not just a clear sticker that can kind of get gunked up. It almost looks like fabric or something. It's a really nice look. It blends into the metal and black look of this bike, just kind of sturdy, a little bit tougher. Some of the cables are internally routed, but not all of them. So you can see here, this is the shifter cable right here that's completely exposed, and then this is the brake line cable. They are mechanical disc brakes, which are a little bit easier to adjust on your own just with an Allen key than hydraulic, but they require a little bit more hand effort, especially the rear brake, because that cable goes all the way up there to the right lever. And over time that will stretch a little bit, so it is a good idea to adjust this, or go to your Magnum dealer and have them do a tune-up just to keep the bike running well. 160 millimeter rear disc brake rotor, 180 up front, and a lot of your stopping power does come from the front of the bike, especially when you're braking and your weight shifts forward. Might even have a little bit of dive on that suspension fork. They chose really good brake levers, in my opinion. 4-finger levers give you a lot of extra leverage as you're pulling with the mechanical disc brakes. Rubberized edge so they don't cut into your hands. Got a little flick bell here. I like that bell a lot. It sounds really nice. And then the trigger shifters on the right, you can get 3 gear changes with the big lever there for lower gears, and then 1 if you click the high lever. A nice little window there for people who want that feedback. The ergonomic faux leather, nice and matching. Celery Royale gel saddle. Kind of keep bumping this out of position here. I was adjusting the height earlier, so that's as low as it can go. So again, the standover height and the minimum saddle height are both fairly high, and then that's like the maximum extension. These bikes only really come in 1 frame size per model, but again, small, medium, large. I think they've done a pretty good job of covering a wide range of users with these bikes. They look good. They keep the price down at $16.99, and that's great for a year-long comprehensive warranty and dealer support, in my opinion. 1.5 pound battery charger. Weighs about, it weighs about 1.5 pounds, but it's a 2 amp charger, so it's a little bit average, I guess I would say. This is not like super fast. It's not super light or compact, but it gets the job done, and It's probably fairly cheap to replace. Looks like it comes with some tools and stuff. But again, if you buy it from the dealer, they're going to take care of all of that, and you can probably just wheel it out and go for a ride. So I think that's about it as far as, you know, what the bike does and the components and everything like that. But I want to show you how to start it up. Well, I've noticed that even if the battery's fully charged, if you haven't used it for a little while, you have to press that little power button there before you can activate the display by pressing that M button. The display is not removable. You could probably swivel it a little bit to reduce glare like I just did, but it could take more sun and scratches at the bike rack over time. So again, it's nice that this is fairly modular and replaceable. We've got 6 bars on that battery infographic. Current speed, assist level, it starts in 1, and the throttle is hot. So a lot of times I'll hop on the bike before I turn it on just so I don't bump the throttle. And then we have an odometer, we've got trip timer, trip distance, and max speed. If we hold the minus key, we get walk mode, which is a pretty handy feature if you get a flat tire or maybe you need to climb a hill where you don't feel comfortable riding. Like actually there are some paths up there and that's just too steep and the turns are too sharp. So walk mode would be really great. You're not pushing a 60-pound bike up the hill, or roughly 60 pounds. If we hold the plus button, we get backlighting just on the display. Remember that the lights are independently operated. And if we hold plus and minus, we get to the settings menu. And there's a password. So this is something you probably want to work with your dealer to get some more information. But you can lower that top speed. You could set the overall top speed of this bike to 20 miles per hour, even though its potential is 25 miles per hour as a speed pedelec, class 3. You could lower it even lower than that, like 15.5 miles per hour if you want to get better range and just maybe you feel safer at lower speeds. And then down here is a sealed 12 magnet cadence sensor, and that's what sends a signal from your pedal assist level to the motor to activate. So it's not about how hard you push, it's just are you moving those cranks, and if you are, it sends kind of a go signal to the motor, and at any point in time you can override that by pulling the left brake lever, which has a motor inhibitor right here, see that wire? The right one does not. So that's another sort of cost savings approach, I would think. You know, I've seen a bunch of bikes that kind of have both, some bikes that have none, and this one that gives you a little bit of that. I think it's worth keeping in mind, and that is your front brake. You can see that actuating as I pull right there. So just keep that in mind. That's one of the little trade-offs. You know, coming back to the bike as a whole, I think it's a good value. Magnum's been around for a long time. The batteries are cross-bike compatible. You know, they've really got it down to a science, and this bike feels good. This one is especially stiff and kind of fast and zippy for like a commuting platform. If I was going to work each day, I would feel good about this bike. And the price point is low enough where I don't have to do anything else, the fenders or buy any extra accessories like lights. The lights could be a little bit better. The brakes could be hydraulic, but for the price to have local dealer service is pretty great. So I think I'm gonna hop on this bike and do a little test ride with you. Okay, you guys, got my buddy Chris over here. He's gonna hop on the Ui6 Plus. Look at that, just mounts it like a champ, totally ready to go. I'm on the standard Ui6, and I just want to give you an idea of what this looks like. Chris, how tall are you?
I'm about 5'7".
5'7", and you know, you're doing okay, right?
Yeah,
you're probably right at the limit.
I'd be about the limit of what would be comfortable on this bike. You can see the seats almost all the way at the bottom.
Yeah, okay, well let's do it. Let's just ride a little ways. There we go. Looking good. Perfect. Thanks, buddy. And you'll notice how he kind of tipped it to the side when he was getting off there, just to make it a little bit more approachable. There you go. Just hand that one off. So if you are someone who you want the high step look, or you know, for whatever reason, but you're having trouble getting over that, you can just lean the bike towards you and then step over, just like that. I'm about 5'9", so I'm gonna go ahead and pedal this around. Here we go. I'm starting off in kind of a high gear, but that pedal assist came on pretty quickly. And I feel like the motor's actually pretty quiet considering the power it offers. And even with those narrower tires, it's still fairly stable, doing the no-hand maneuver here. There we go. The brakes in action. One-handed braking. There we go. A little bit of dive, of course, as my weight shifts forward. That suspension fork compresses a little bit. Okay, guys, from here you can see the 48 tooth, I believe, aluminum alloy chainring. I used my magnet and it didn't connect, so I think this is all aluminum up here, which is a little bit lighter. We've got that Z chain and the 14 to 28 tooth cassette in the rear. This position is designed to let you see that motor, see me pedaling, and then get a sense for how quickly pedal assist starts and stops, and also just how the motor sounds. I'm going to be operating this in the highest level of pedal assist, which is 6, and I'm not going to use the throttle. I'm going to go as fast as I can, get up to that 25 mile per hour top speed. Here we go. Great job with the brakes, everything's smooth, quiet. It's working just fine. Guys, I think that's about it for the full written review on the Ui6 Plus and the Ui6 and some other Magnum electric bikes. I'll see you back at electricbikereview.com and the forums. Chime in if maybe you already own this bike, or perhaps I missed something, or you have some tips about the display or whatever. Always appreciate that feedback. I love you guys. Ride safe. We'll see you next time.